Thanks for watching The Instant Reaction. For full episodes of the Cannon Podcast, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod. Welcome back to The Instant Reaction. We won a game of football!
Doesn't count, mate. We only scored 3 open play goals. Don't matter.
It's brilliant. You know what? I don't know about you guys, but look, I'm gonna have to say part of being a foreign fan is that you don't get the times that you guys are lovely doing. It is way too early over here in Canada.
Oh, I agree. It is way too early.
Fake fan. It's also way too early for Bhavs. So
yes, it's way too early.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? I look, before I came on, I quickly went through socials so I could get an idea of what happened pre-match, and I don't know what people were thinking, but people were furious, mate, with the lineup. And the general timeline was, oh my God, we haven't learned anything. We've gone to Dubai to come back to essentially a non-changed lineup or an unchanged dynamic, right? And so I was very confused. And I mean, we've been predicting a really big win coming.
Yeah.
We've been predicting a 5-0 coming on this podcast. And it's kind of nice in the first game that we got running power FC for 20 minutes. And so it's like some of the highlights are there. But for you guys, what were some of the big things that you saw, at least with the lineup? Like, what were your emotions coming into the game? Because we saw Trossard in the lineup. We saw Zinchenko. And I'll be honest, that lineup to me screamed, did we learn much? Like, what were your guys' first thoughts seeing those players?
Yeah, look, I think we should probably be honest and say at the beginning, when we all saw that lineup, I was expecting more change. I think when in that first half, I wasn't. This is the thing. I think what happens is sometimes you go, it would be nice for this to happen, or it's a shame that our attacking patterns still don't look good, and then it's seen as like this sort of massive attack. It's like, it's okay if we win the match. That is 95% of the headline. That's all that matters. Then there's just a couple of little subtitles at the bottom saying, "Can we improve on this, that, and the other?" Saying we could improve on this, that, and the other, which I think we should get to at some point, is fine. It's okay, and there's some things to improve on. But I think we should focus on the positives and say, we won 5-0. And for the confidence, that is all that matters. For the confidence to come away, looking at that scoreline, going home tonight, knowing we've got that monkey off our back. We know that that's done now. We can move forward. We can press forward. I think we've got a week on Tuesday to our next game. We're looking, a lot of things were returning. There were some problems, which we should come to. But Bhavs, yeah, I don't know. I can only look at the positives now.
I wasn't surprised by the lineup because when I saw it, I thought Mikel was just stacking the goal scorers because we needed a goal, right? And when you got Havertz, who's naturally a goal scorer, Trossard's more of a natural finisher as well. I think he wanted to, find a way to score. The fact that it came from our centre back was maybe not ideal, but it came from the centre back. And we hear all the time on social media how set pieces are, I would say, underrated. And every time I want to score a set piece goal, it's like, oh my God, they only score set pieces. We can definitely score more goals from open play, but that's not, scoring set pieces isn't a bad thing. That's actually a positive. Only because we're not scoring from open play doesn't affect the set pieces. Well, that itself is amazing.
No one at the ground cares. It's a social media thing. Let's not look at it through. It's a quest for perfection. Basically, it's like every single goal needs to be Wenger-esque 1-2. The Norwich goal where Wilshere scored. Yeah. And it's not like that. Yeah. And maximising set pieces that Mikel Arteta has done in the last 2-3 years is a very positive sign because you'll score important goals like we saw today.
Let's say, like, when you look at the score line, we've combined open play with set pieces. Maybe part of the frustration, just so I can get maybe alternative fan views, is that it's the proportion of the set piece goals making up our goals. And that's where maybe people have issue. Because I think nobody can have issue with us being the best set piece team in the league, 100%. Which never gets talked about enough. I think Nicholas Jover deserves huge praise. I mean, there's a lot of narrative online that we don't defend set pieces as well at the near post. But for me, the set piece thing is actually something to tease out a little bit more because Declan Rice is on corners. And, we saw the training picks, comes from a Declan Rice corner. We get a goal. So, boys, like, do you guys feel that could be something that's in his locker moving forward? I know for myself, I've always felt like he could be a dead ball specialist with some more training, with some more time. I just think his technique, his ball striking means that he's got some guided deliveries that we could really hone. And it was nice to see little tidbits, but do you guys think that this is something to see moving forward, that we see Declan Rice on some set pieces?
It was a phenomenal delivery. I'll be real.
Mm.
So, because the moment I looked at the corner, I was like, oh, it's Declan Rice. And as George says, we saw the photo on Twitter. So I was like, there's got to be something he's worked on there. And when I saw the quality and the strike itself, it was a fantastic cross. I was almost like, I'd say, Kevin De Bruyne type of cross. Like, just pinpoint accuracy, perfect pace. And then obviously Gabriel does amazing as well. So I think so. I think he took most of the corners on that side from right and saying anyways. And having that elite ball striking, I think is why another reason why he's so special.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I was saying to my mate, well, who I was watching it with, I was like, why is Rice on corners? Because we're looking at, two maybe his two biggest moments in an Arsenal shirt so far are both from set pieces. If they're from a Luton free kick and from a the Man United goal, so arguably. So I was a little bit frustrated, but you know what? I don't care. And this is, maybe this is my headline for today. I don't care. There are some issues which we should come to, but I just feel this is such an important win in the context. Think what's been going through the players' minds for the last couple of weeks. It's like all that stuff. They will be talking about it in Dubai and saying, the finishing. What can we do? And every question's about it. Everything is. But we need to get the finishing right. We need to get the finishing right. And that getting that off the back of those players, getting that out of we could have won 10-0 or 2-0. Getting that off the back of the players, getting a win is the most important thing. So let's not.
It's a funny game, isn't it? Because we're struggling to score goals in the last two, and then bang, Martinelli comes off the bench and goal off the goal, right? And the funny thing was, I don't think if you noticed this, right, but we celebrated the third goal a lot more than the first and second because it was open play. You can see where Trossard celebrated, and it was more passionate. It was almost like a wow, we've finally done it. It's been a while, and that's the thing that we're working on the most.
And thank you so much to Wayne Jenkins for the super chat here. TNT's commentator saying Eza rather than Eze. That's me. That is me. That is me as a commentator. The pronunciation issues coming to fore. So thank you again for your super chat, Wayne. We appreciate that. And I think that maybe looking in total of the match, we can go through, because it seemed to me a game of two halves. It seemed to me that, while we definitely got the set piece goals, there was an issue in the first half with us getting started. And I mean, I think we can maybe briefly talk about that left-hand side creatively, some of the problems that we saw. And then we can move on to the brilliant second half, which I felt is pretty significant, not just because I do want to have a section on the central running power, but the ending with Jorginho, I thought was very interesting. Much of what we saw with Liverpool had to do with that double pivot. And then in the last 15 minutes, again, we see a very good spark for the team. So what did you guys make of kind of that first half? Maybe a game of two halves, despite, having very high XG. And look, guys, the people are saying it, field tilt. Can we've got to find the field tilt.
Let's look at the stat before we
field tilt's been banned, bro. You know
before we go on to that,
we cannot.
Let's have a look at the stats.
We cannot.
And the most important one. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Now, Lee, I'm not joking. Lee, I'm not joking. Field tilt is the most important thing in the world.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. This isn't a joke.
Give us a title. Give us a title. If we end the year and we're not the best team in the field tilt, we don't deserve a title.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's all that matters to me.
XG, don't care. Goals, don't care. Running XG, don't care. Field tilt. 5 goals, from 2.5 expected goals, so we're overshooting that, which is nice. Which is hasn't happened that many times. 22 shots to Palace's 12. Open play shots to 11-5. Possession 60-39. I do think though, George, to return to what you're saying, a game of two halves. I think in the first half, I did feel. There's a number of things. I didn't think there was nothing wrong, but it was similar to the problems that we've been having over the last couple of weeks. Nothing necessarily wrong, but nothing exciting and nothing sort of getting us out of our seat and nothing getting us going forward and whatever. And when you have that situation, you put so much, and you don't make enough chances, or you don't make enough high quality chances, really, is the point. You put so much pressure on the finishing, and that's kind of been the quandary that we've been in. So I was worried that it was the same situation again. And I was pretty shocked that Mikel hadn't made more changes.
Yeah. I think that was the thing that our fans were so annoyed, maybe because they seen the rumours about Smith Rowe, and then Mikel said that he's been training well again. They're going, oh, this might be the game.
Yeah.
And looking at how Smith Rowe came off the bench, you can't help but talk about it straight away, because the energy, the intensity, and just the fact that you can see that he wants a goal. You can see it. And I think if he gets more minutes, he'll get that goal, because he'll keep getting into the positions, and he's not a bad finisher either. Fantastic ball strike. I mean, we remember how good he was in 2021, 22. So yeah. I have to think that Mikel needs to show Smith Rowe a pathway. because the quality is there. And obviously, it falls down to Emil as well to stay fit, because every time he has maybe had a chance, maybe when Odegaard was injured earlier this season, he wasn't available. But if he can stay fit, Mikel needs to show him a reason, to why he should stay at Arsenal, and there is going to be a pathway, because we've seen it with Ramsdale now. He was fantastic against Liverpool, dropped for this game here. Those players that are trying to break into the first team, they need to be shown that if they play well, they will break into that team. Rather than if you play well, it doesn't matter anyways, because next game, because then how are they meant to be motivated going into the next game in the future?
So let me ask a question. Let me bring Alex in here because at the end of the day, Mikel needs to show, for as much as maybe I or even Bhavs, like we love what Smith Rowe could be, right? And for as much as that, I think we both admit between now and the end of the season, Emil has to prove he's able to come in this team and do more of this cameo on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that, Mikel has to give him the minutes, has to be given the opportunities. In your opinion, what was the biggest on the ball differences? Because I would argue we all admit that Emil maybe has to do a little bit more defensively in terms of a profile, in terms of getting in the team. Perhaps the reason he hasn't in the past is because of his pressing schemes and his commitment off the ball. But on the ball, what is your opinion on what he offers us besides the central running power, besides the incision between the lines? Like when you compare between Havertz, and let's try not to beat around the bush here, the first half performance of what you've seen with Kai Havertz, and then the kind of 20 minutes that you see with kind of Emil there. What is it that either keeps him on the bench or, in your opinion, lets him move on now with some more consistent minutes in comparison to some of our other 8 options?
I think both of them suited their own game states that they were in. I think Havertz suited it maybe a little bit more, being when it was a little bit more attritional. I think he helped us to control the game. But I think as the game opened up, what you see is an ability to turn and receive and drive forward. And the thing is, every time Havertz receives the ball between the lines, the first thing he does is connect. He always immediately gets out of his feet, which is fine. But Smith Rowe is willing to drive, is willing to make those off the ball runs, is willing to come through centrally and offer you something a little bit more. And you're not always going to have that space, which is why he worked at the end. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Smith Rowe start. I think, again, we're maybe in a similar situation with Smith Rowe as we were with Trossard. There was a sort of period where everyone was saying, well, Trossard needs to start. But actually, the reason Trossard, maybe at the end of last season, at the beginning of this season, was having such an impact was because he could come on into certain game states that really suited him. And I do think with Smith Rowe, there is an element of that. I'd love to see him start. But, what more can Smith Rowe do than what he did in that cameo? Nothing. He came on. He was fantastic. He looked really dangerous. He probably, a Jesus pass being a slightly, touch further back. And he's probably in. So, and I thought he looked really, really, really strong. People were clearly trying to set him up. You could see a number of chances nearly fell to him. I think he probably would have got a goal had he, played for another 20 minutes. But look, I think it is coming back to George, what you said about Mikel. Mikel has to give him the opportunities. And the only evidence we have is that he doesn't want to do that, which is why I retain.
I think a major reason why fans want to see Smith Rowe play is because not just Smith Rowe, but a lot of the players that fans want to see, maybe Reece Nelson or someone like that, it feels like Mikel chooses them by force at times. Like he will only choose them if he needs to. And I think if he wants to show these players that they are a part of the squad, he needs to trust them proactively. In games like not just today, but in games where, in the 70th minute, if we are struggling and we need a goal, maybe change up, maybe bring on a Smith Rowe, because Alex talks about all the time that we might need a Phil Foden type of profile who can collect it and turn. And Smith Rowe is the closest we have to that.
Yeah. Agreed.
So if we've got that sort of profile and he is available, then you've got to use him a bit more often. And I think the more you use him, the more he'll get rhythm. And then if he scores a goal, the thing is, if he scores a goal today, does he break into the game next lineup? Probably not. And that's, for me, not an issue necessarily, but I want to see maybe Mikel reward his players that come off the bench with cameos, with maybe a start here and there, to show them, like, okay, look, there is a clear pathway, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, you keep working hard, you make an impact, and you'll get a chance.
And I mean, to be fair, look, he's coming off. I don't think people understand the reintegration and the physio components to this. For example, I would never, as Smith Rowe's probably biggest fan, I would never say he needs a 90 right now. He needs several 20 minutes to be introduced, by the way, to get match fitness, to build himself up to a point to get 90. And I think that Mikel, look, to be fair, in the last month, Mikel has said more positive Emil Smith Rowe things than he did in the previous 9. So there's clearly been a shift in the narrative, a shift in how we view him. Ultimately, we just have to see. But I think moving forward, we could talk about Emil Smith Rowe. I would love to for the whole pod, but we have to move on. And last 15 or so minutes, I want to go to Bhavs, because we see Jorginho come in and we see, I'd say maybe 15, 20, but like I think it was 15. But you see him come in, and I think that the dynamics that he provides, maybe not as the player moving forward, but he's certainly come in to have a brilliant cameo himself. Somebody that I think even from Liverpool, we see the power of what that double pivot type balance gives us. What do you think Jorginho gave us in the end? And do you think that's something that we should start to look at going forward to start with more regularly?
I love Jorginho's variation. He always kind of knows when to play that perfect passing behind. And if he sees it, he'll play it. I think with Rice and Partey at times, it can be a little bit more erratic, or they might not choose to play it, especially in terms of Declan Rice, because he's a bit different in nature. But Jorginho's got the experience, and you can see it. And when he comes on, you know he's a bit more assured to him. And as you said, that game against Liverpool, apart from the finishing, the balance was fantastic. So seeing that in that game, and in certain games, Zinchenko may not be available in injury. Mikel has seen that if he could balance his team correctly in midfield and have the pivot maybe as two midfielders instead, then it works. So I think that's the key thing a lot of fans want to see, is not just the finishing, but a better balance to the team. And when you focus on the left-hand side, it feels like at times with Havertz and Trossard in this game, and maybe Jesus drifting over, it's not as balanced. And then you see Smith Rowe come on and Martinelli come on. They're more complementing profiles. You can see that we start to use the left-hand side more often, and then also become more unpredictable.
Absolutely. And like, Alex, I don't want to starve you of this conversation, but I mean, this idea of balance, right? Like, we've been searching for it all season. We've had I'd argue the little cons that we have in every great performance relate to balance, right? For you, is this something that we need to tease open a little bit more? Or is it more of a case of, listen, it's the end of the game. We're already up 3-4-0. He's coming into favorable conditions already. Is there too much stock being put into this cameo, or is it fair to kind of combine Liverpool and this and say there is something to work on here? There is something to tease open for more balance.
I think so. I think, I'll go back to what I said about the first half. I was shocked that Mikel didn't do something a little bit more different. I was shocked to not see Saka slightly differently. You could argue there's maybe a little bit more rotation, but towards the end, Saka was fully inside. And I was, expecting, and again, there's so many options, and I'm not suggesting, right, tear everything up, put Saka in the middle, drop Martinelli, put Trossard at left back. I'm not saying that, but just a little bit of a tweak somewhere. And I was surprised that the only thing he did was a personnel thing, but essentially employed Trossard in a pretty similar way to the way he does Martinelli. So that did shock me. And I think, as you guys have sort of alluded to, that left-hand side did look more effective, but I will again go back to the game state and say, I think it does depend on where you are at in a game. I want to, though, bring up one of the issues, and maybe sort of throw this back to you guys. I feel like our line height has dropped. I could be wrong. I need to look at the numbers. And I was trying to find the numbers just now. But what it feels like at the moment, and part of the reason it feels like we're not particularly fluid at times, because the way we got forward, the goals that we scored were transition goals, which is great. And I'm not complaining. And again, I want to it's like my thing about the academy players.
Here we go again. Alex at the end of a 5-0 saying how bad we are. Unbelievable.
Top gooner, mate. Top gooner.
Yeah, top gooners, always complaining. I just, I in no way want anyone to think this is a subtitle of a subtitle of a subtitle of a problem, right? But I do look at the way we were playing in that first half, and I feel as though the compression that we had in those best parts of 22-23 and the best games that we've had so far this season, it feels like Saliba and Gabriel and Jesus are years away from each other at the minute. And what that creates is a difficulty to connect through the lines. What it creates is I think some second ball looseness. I think it creates a difficulty to almost a desire as a team to get the ball forward quickly. A number of things. I need to look at the numbers, but that's a sense that I get. I also feel when we're attacking in open play, everyone wants to stick to their channel. You see Trossard will almost, in that first half, was almost always going on the outside. Absolutely fine. Havertz was always going through in that gap between the centre back and the fullback. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. But if you happen every time you move forward as a sort of that front four or Ødegaard joining, and everyone's in the same lanes every single time, it just creates a little bit of predictability. Small tweaks, not massive things. We won the game 5-0. I'm not saying it's a massive problem, but I do think we could be sat here on a different day, say Palace score from a corner, and we're again talking about our lack of ability in to create really, really good chances. It's not worked out that way, and I'm happy for that, but I do want to bring it up.
I'm with you at the beginning of the season. I'm not with you in the last 5 games, because I've seen some other statistics in terms of PPDA and our distances off the ball, which have become much shorter and much more intense, which I think to me point to more of a high press in recent games, which is reflected in our high turnovers as well. If you look at the last 5 games, the high turnover numbers have been exceptional. And I think that our press in the last 5 games in general has been much more man-to-man. But I am with you because I feel as though that the line did drop in previous games because we haven't been as man marking. As soon as you increase the line height, you demand to go 1v1 in the press.
The only sorry to cut you off, but the only thing I have at the minute, I was trying to find some numbers. The only thing I have is the average positions.
Yeah, that's tough.
Saliba's average position. Do you know what I mean? It's deeper than Palace. So what it creates is that massive gap, which and Saliba, you want him? I want him here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in general, though, I think that has to do with what is your pressing fundamentals, right? Like if you're not willing to go man to man in a particular game, your line height can't be high. If your line height is high, you're going to want to be more man to man because then the distances are shorter. And I think that has to do a bit more with the decision making in that sense. Now, I think. As soon as you get Yuri and Timber, as soon as you get Thomas Partey, I'd be interested. Does this trend continue? I don't think it does.
Maybe, I also do agree out of possession. I hear that, but I think in possession, I think we can step up a little bit more. I do feel, even with that caveat, that maybe we're not absolutely going for them because the ball breaks and you are where you are, right, and then you just start to play. But I think I don't know. I've just felt us creeping back, and it just creates that chasm. It's probably a case of a couple of meters. It's really not big, but it did feel quite apparent to me in that first half.
What do you think, Bhavs? Too much in it? Nothing in it at all, or a lot in it?
Or I'm moaning again. Oh,
we want to look. We won 5-0. We want to filter. I don't really care.
Very fair.
Just because I think before we go to some questions, I think we should take a little step back.
Yes.
5-0. Do you know what I mean? We've got 11 days. Like, it's so positive. It's so positive.
Do you know what I'll say, though, is now you look at the last 3 results we've had in the 3 defeats in Fulham, Liverpool, and was it West Ham? In 2 of those games, we deserve to win those. But fans were some fans were hiding that fact. They're going, no, bro, you got to do more. You got to do more. We were doing the things that were right. And in this game, I'd say luck went in our favour, and you earned that luck. Because in those 3, that was not sustainable. You don't go make that level of XG and those many big chances and not win games. And so to win 5-0, I think it's it's justifiable. And I think I saw it actually on the earlier stats. Or was it post-shot XG? It was above our actual XG, which maybe it's a sign that our finishing is improving. And you could definitely see that once we scored that 3rd goal, the open play goal, that the team started to play with more fluency, more confidence. And I don't think it's an issue of quality when you talk about our finishers. Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, these are all very good finishers. I think it was a matter of they were all out of confidence at the same time. And to see one of our best finishers come off the bench and score 2 goals, picture perfect goals, Thierry Henry-esque, it's exactly what we needed.
Agree. Let's go to some comments. Ash I. Are Gabriel and Rice injured? Yeah.
Out for the season.
Don't say that. Rice, it was weird because he didn't look injured, but he walked off saying hammy, and then that was a massive thing. He said, he could have just said something else. He could have said El Neni. Like, we don't know. We're lip readers once again.
I think he did.
He might have, but he didn't look injured. It didn't look like he was holding his hamstring or anything like that.
No, it was just tightness. I saw the comments at the presser. I mean, I doubt it. Here, let me put it to you this way: if you pull a hammy, you will know. The fans will.
That's what I was going to say. You would have known. You would have seen an issue in how he was playing with discomfort.
Yeah. You can't play on with a pulled hammy. Like, you will know. So in terms of Milo, thank you. Striker finish, get Gabriel up top. Look, set pieces was significant, but I think Gabriel, for me, maybe we have a little conversation about him. He never gets spoken about as one of the best defenders in the league, and he never gets
score
the
like
praise.
20 goals.
It's ridiculous to me because
and important goals, by the way, as well. He don't just score goals; it's very important goals.
Very, very important goals. And I think that if you were to go through a season, you can almost guarantee that he is going to score you 3 to 5 goals in a season for a defender. That's big. That's not marginal. So, like, where do you guys stand in terms of Gabriel's importance to the team and how he's talked about broadly? Because I don't think that he gets enough praise from online fans, from rival fans either. I mean, people call him a bozo, which is just a very super late kind of description of him. He's been incredible, and he's been incredible for almost 2 years now, guys.
It's funny because I think if a player makes an early mistake when he's young, because Gabriel's, he's not really old, he's not like 29, 30s. I think he's
Yeah.
like 25 now. He
Yeah.
made a few mistakes when he was 23 and 24, which happens, but he develops, so he learns from that. I think a lot of people, they're too quick to cap people's potential if they make a mistake, and they miss out all the good parts. And I think that was with Gabriel last season. He had a few tough moments where players go through that. And the fact that he's come through stronger, especially after being left out of the World Cup squad, you can see that he's going, look, I need to perfect my game, I need to work harder. And there's even people that used to didn't like him as much now, and now they're praising him because they can see the player has earned it. So he's been consistent. I haven't seen any massive errors this season. So yeah, he definitely deserves his flowers. But you see how rival fans are, man. They're always the last ones to give it.
Chris, this win means nothing. Palace have lost like 7 games in 11. Disagree with the first part, obviously, but I do think it's worth saying
Context.
Palace were bad.
Yeah, they're not
It's
amazing.
worth
team.
saying that.
But so are Liverpool, and they somehow won that game. Right? I wouldn't even say West Ham were fantastic against Arsenal either. It's always funny when a team comes to the Emirates and parks the bus and gets away with it, and then the commentators go, "Oh, it was a tremendous defensive performance." No, we missed our chances because it was a tremendous defensive performance. We don't get chances. Like you talk about Palace today, how many chances did they have? Clear-cut chances. Liverpool, apart from that Diaz one right at the end, they didn't have many clear-cut chances. An own goal they scored. West Ham, they had a corner. That was about it. Teams aren't creating chances against Arsenal, and I would argue they've been getting fortunate. And today, there was no luck on Palace's side.
Look, I think you've got to balance some of this because I do want to bring it out to a broad perspective, guys. And one thing that I think is important, look, 5-0 is beautiful, it's amazing. But guys, our goal difference for me was worrying in a sense, and we've done a really good job about getting that back up. So just in general, I mean, the goal differences of 25 for both Liverpool and Man City prior to the match, we're sitting at 17, which is with Villa, which is with Tottenham, and we are close to points there. And then now we bump ourselves up to 22. I think that's significant. It's not significant just for the open play goals, which it is, but I think that we were reaching a point where there was going to be a kind of a bookmark between City and Liverpool in terms of a goal difference. And then we're going to be the rest of the pack. Now we've got ourselves a little bit up there, and we're close. We're within touching distance of them, which I think is important moving forward. But looking at the table, I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys, sit down here. Obviously, City and Liverpool are yet to play. Obviously, we've got ourselves in a position to be within touching distance of the top. What does this performance do for us going forward in the next, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks? Where do you want to see us make up ground, and where do you think that we need to start establishing our dominance?
I wouldn't be surprised if we won the next 3 games in a row, which includes Liverpool at home. And I think Arsenal are always that team under Arteta. If we lose 3 in a row, we're about to go on the fattest winning run possible, and it happens all the time. It's just a theme where you won't lose 1 or 2, you lose 3 in a row, and then you go on a 5, 6, 7 game winning streak.
Yeah.
Just pulling out the fixtures. Sorry, 1 second. So the fixtures are here. So we've got Forest again. Another 10. Jesus. Let's get there first. We've got 10 days till the next game. Then we'll have another 4 days before Liverpool at home at the Emirates. No, the dog's not here, Bhavs. West Ham away, London Stadium. Could be a bit tricky. The away at Turf Moor, and then we're in the Champions League.
When
so that Champions League game is a month and a day from now. How many points do you see us picking up in those? What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4 games.
12.
Babs says 12. Look, I think anywhere from 10 to 12 is something that we need to look at if we want to maintain this title race form. And unfortunately, that's kind of what. Look, on one hand, people say you're going to overinflate a Palace win. And then on the other hand, they're like, I want you to compete for the title. I'm sorry, competing for the title is 10 to 12 points in that run. You do have to get that if you want to compete for this title. Now, if you're saying that we're not going to compete for this title, then no problem. You're going to be a little bit less. But I will say, looking at this in general, I think that 10 points is something that I'm expecting at a minimum. I am with Babs. There's a chance for us at home because Salah for me won't be there. They're going to make it at least to the round of 16 unless something crazy happens and they don't beat Cape Verde, who have already qualified. It's significant. And, I think that if you're going to be at home, we owe Liverpool a game as well. I think we played very well against them, and that game could have gone either way. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that we absolutely drop points, but it's one of those margin games, right? And I think if you're going to get yourself above Liverpool in this potential title race, you need that to swing. You need that game to go towards you. So a minimum of 10 points for me in that run.
I think we have the capacity to earn the right to win. I think we have the ability in us to earn the right to beat Liverpool. It doesn't mean we will, but I think we have it in us to put in a performance and dominate them at home. So I'm actually more confident about that one than away at London Stadium. London Stadium concerns me.
It does,
Well,
but I would love nothing more than to win against the so-called European champions, as I like to say. And I think, you know, we've been decent away from home this season anyways. And, you know, the West Ham game at the Emirates, I didn't see that performance, and I wasn't going, wow, they're an amazing side. They are fantastic, but they've got no Paqueta, which is, I'd argue, their best player. And we're going to have players returning. You might have Thomas Partey available for that as well. And, you know, if you can put Rice a bit higher, you know, with that midfield of Odegaard, Rice and Partey, why not?
Look, it's a big statement win in the broad scheme of things, but we'll kind of maybe look for questions at the end, and then we'll kind of tie this up. I think all in all, I will say if you can beat teams outside of your title challenger race and at least draw or win at home against your title challengers, you lead yourself to a title. That's the formula. So as far as I'm looking at, I don't think it's confidence. I don't think it's over arrogance, but it's just a demand in this league. We need to beat teams that are outside the top 3. And for me, those are the minimums. So you go through the schedule for the next 5 to 6 games. We've got a period of games that for the most part, we aren't facing title rivals except for Liverpool. You can almost accept drop points on that as long as, you know, there's going to be a fight and there's going to be us reaching up to that level. But I think beyond that, you cannot afford to drop points against teams outside the top 3. We've done too much of that. That's what caused a little bit of the meltdown. But for now, if you're looking at City and Liverpool, what do, guys? 10, 15 kind of game runs where they don't drop a point. That needs to be the expectation. And I really want to make a point. That's not over arrogance. That's not over confidence. That is the standard. If your standard is title competition, unfortunately, these are the fucking standards, you know? And so I think it's not just that I demand that. I think the team is able to do it with returnee players. But we take it one game at a time, one step at a time. We've come from a wobble. You can't look much farther than your next game. 5-0 is brilliant. We can be excited, elated about this result. But then we approach kind of Forest in the next 10 games and we kind of say more of the same, lads. Like, let's just start building those building blocks to a winning run.
Vamos. I think it's a good place to leave it.
Excellent. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us. We really do appreciate all your supports. Of course, Wade Jenkins with the super chat. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all you in the comments as well. We couldn't do this if we didn't have you guys coming in to engage with us. We really do appreciate it. And Alex, you want to satisfy Milo's?
They want it. Bhavs hates it, but they want it. The people want it.
I don't hate it. I just find it odd.
I'll tell you what I'll give you all. I'll tell you what I'll give you all instead. You can have this.
Come on, Jamie. Yo, VIP. Let's kick it. Rice, baby. Rice, baby. All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Rice is back with my brand new invention. Something got a hold of me tightly. Flow like a hot-cold Debian.
You don't like to touch balls? So I love it. So yeah, come. You don't like to touch balls? You don't like to touch balls? Touch balls? You don't like to 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 touch balls? So I love it. The Korean guy, and so I love it. You don't like to touch balls?